I grew up with the authorized version, or what is popularly called the King James Version. And long ago, I updated to the New American Standard. It has been my go-to English translation for over 30 years. Having said that, there are still things about the King James that I kind of get stuck with. One of them is the word patience. If you read through the fruit of the Spirit in the King James, you have a word called long suffering, because there's a word in there that meant literally to have a long temper, which sounds odd to us, but it took a long time to ever get angry. And that has been translated in almost all of your modern translations that I've ever come across as patience. And patience used to be in the King James most of the time reserved for the Greek word hupomene or mane and the verb hupomeno, to be patient or exercise patience. What does that all have to do with anything? Well, I'm Pastor Tim Holscher. We're looking at regeneration, and we're looking at things that God provides to us because we are His children. Part of sharing in this kind of divine nature. And there's these things that we are to add. We are to add this excellence, to our faith. We are to add activities that are praiseworthy, noteworthy in a certain way. We're at knowledge, as we gain knowledge of God, as we're interacting with God and using His nature. As we exercise self-control, that's part of the fruit from the Spirit, the ability to bring our appetites under control so we control them rather than us being driven by our appetites. And perseverance. That's the word I grew up with for patience. Still stuck with this word patience. Perseverance in my mind has a different concept. And maybe I just don't understand hupomane. But I want to look at some examples of this word. One of the passages, if you've ever studied with me before, that I almost always go to is 1 Thessalonians 1:3, where Paul says, remembering then before God, even our Father, your work, and I would take this to be what we call an ablative of source, your work from faith. So they have promises from God that they can do a work, and they actually do that work based on faith in that opportunity. Labor, the word, we get the word kapiao as the verb that form of this, which meant to weary oneself, to tire oneself here, but they do that from love. So the work starts as an act of faith. Love will make you then wear yourself out, tire yourself in the process of doing that, because you love this other individual so much that you will not just do work, but you'll even tire yourself if that's necessary. And then oftentimes when we're doing this work and laboring, we're going to find that things don't always go well. Things go sideways. Things might not even always be appreciated. You ever do something for somebody and they don't necessarily appreciate what you've done, how you've helped them? And therefore we have this word that's translated endurance, which gives to me a different sense than what hupomane means. Now let's take this word hupomane for a minute. And we have to be careful, because I realize words that our words are derived from can't always put all that together and get this. But I think that this is a place that can illustrate the nature of this word. The word hupomane is built off the word mane, or from the verb meno, meaning to abide or to be at ease in a location. Hupo meant to be under. So you're abiding at ease under. That's interesting. But it almost always occurs in a context where there's something negative. In other words, you're doing this work from faith. Love makes it become a labor. And when things are hard, you just remain at ease doing this, even when it's difficult, because maybe things just aren't working, or people are making it hard, or whatever. Maybe you become sick. I always think of Epaphroditus in Philippians chapter 2, that he becomes sick, and he doesn't quit when he becomes sick. He keeps going to the point that he gets so sick he almost dies when he's carrying out that work. And that's patience, this word, or endurance. Endurance kind of is a little bit more, to me, the idea of what happens if I go running and you get out there and, if I don't know if any of you run, but there's days you out and run and you do it and it's like, wow, I could run another mile or two. And then there's days you go out to run and you're just like, oh man, if I'm at 4 miles and I'm ready to die, and endurance says, no, I'm going to keep going. I got 2 more miles to go. And you slodge away. I wouldn't say I'm at ease. It's got a completely different idea. That's the way I understand endurance, and that's why I particularly don't appreciate that. And I want you to understand, I think what he's saying here is that the idea of being at ease under this thing, but that under it, being at ease means you keep doing the right thing. You keep doing the thing you're supposed to do while you are under this adverse circumstance. One of the places that a person might be at ease, exercise this, James 1:12, blessed or happy is the man who is, he says, perseveres or is patient under, and I don't think trial is a good way to handle this. It's the word pyrazo or pyrasmos. It's this idea of a test that expects a failure. And that's what a temptation is. In that temptation, that negative test can become a proving test. But you're patient under it rather than coming under that temptation and changing your character and doing whatever you're tempted to do. No, you keep doing the right thing and you can remain under that. Romans chapter 5 says clearly, it says, and not only that, not only do we boast in the glory of God, but we also then boast in our afflictions, our adversity, our tribulation, because we know that affliction, that is being under negative pressure, produces endurance or patience, the ability to remain doing the right thing, the right attitude under something negative. This is one of the ones that is very important passage. It reminds us as believers that when we go through tough stuff, that's an opportunity for us to grow, and it's an opportunity for us to continue exhibiting the kind of character God desires for us. In Romans 8, and this one is very much like the passage in 1 Thessalonians, it says, but if we hope for what we do not see with perseverance or patience, we wait eagerly for it. In other words, God's made promises to us. We direct our faith at those promises, and we have that because those promises produce hope. I kind of left hope out of there. It's promise, hope, faith would be the biblical logical progression. And if we really have hope, that's going to produce patience because we can say there's more than this. There's more than just this thing. There's this thing out here that God's promised, and I'm waiting for this out here. So I can remain under this thing with the proper character, even though this is hard. And again, and that's exactly what Paul was saying over here. We have a hope. We have a hope that one day our Lord is coming for us. We have a hope that we can actually complete these works of love, and that there is this anticipation that there's better things coming. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 and verse 4, as a result, we ourselves boast about you among the churches of God on behalf of your perseverance or your patience and your faith in all of your persecutions and afflictions or adversities, negative pressure. Again, they're maintaining proper character, proper attitude, even though they're going through persecutions and pressures. Now let's go back to 2 Peter. In this context, this is going to be a little bit more like the James 1, where we're persevering or having patience under temptation. Here, Peter is saying that in the midst of your self-control, reining in your bodily appetites that they may crave, and you may listen to these things that these false teachers, go back and listen to the previous study where we talked a little bit about what these false teachers are doing, trying to bait Christians into a fake freedom and trying to use lusts or cravings of the flesh to do so. And self-control reins those in and says, I don't need to be driven by those cravings that I may have. And so in the midst of those, then we need to have patience. Because just because you rein it in once doesn't mean it's going to stop. They may continue pursuing you. They may continue asking and going after you. And you're going to need to have perseverance or patience under that. Continue maintaining the proper attitude, being at ease under their adversity, knowing with hope that you've got something better. And that something better is going to be sharing in the divine kind of nature, the kind of nature that God has as his child. And as you're sharing in that kind of nature, it's always going to be better than if you were indulging your flesh in its cravings, which is what the false teachers are going to imply is real freedom. But it's not real freedom. Actually living out that character that God can produce in us as his child, that's far better. In fact, that's one thing, thanking my sister again, encourages us to have a good day in the Lord, because you are going to be having a good day in the Lord when you are one that is maintaining the right character, sharing in God's nature, even when there are appeals around you that are very strong. And that's a good day, enjoying God's best, not what the world promises us as their best or their source or their version of freedom. Thank you for joining me today.